As always, this podcast is brought to you by Declan Kirby GAA Star. Pre-order the book now from Bookstation and be in with a chance to win a family pass to the Croke Park Museum. The new book comes out on April 21st. If you're looking to pick up any presents for any nieces or nephews in the coming weeks and months, then why not check out Declan Kirby GAA Star, best children's GAA book on the market at the minute, as voted by Amazon and Easons. It's available on all good bookshops, Amazon, Easons, absolutely everywhere. So get yourself a copy. The new book comes out on April 21st, Declan Kirby GAA Star, European Dreams. Check it out now in the description down below, and let's start the stream. Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm here with Matthew Hurley once again from the GAA Statsman podcast to run through all the weekend's action in both football and hurling, and certainly a lot to discuss. We've seen a big result for Galway away to Mayo, McHale Park. Huge victory, their first win over Mayo since 2018 in the championship. We've seen Donegal turning over Armagh. A lot of hype around Armagh, and not for the first time in the last couple of years they failed to deliver on the big occasion in Ulster. Some big results in Leinster as well, some surprise results in there with wins for both Wexford and Wicklow, and obviously Louth putting up a big score against Carlow as well. And a little bit later towards the end of the show, we'll be running through all the weekend's hurling action as well. I suppose first of all, Matthew, how's life with yourself? You enjoyed all the football action over the weekend? I suppose the championship is well and truly back now at this stage.
It is definitely, Aaron, and thanks for having me on again. Yeah, I actually put it up on Twitter. It's actually weird because Louth were the only team out of all the games to be the highest ranked in the Alliance League and to win it. Like when you think about it, Mayo, Antrim, a few others, Armagh, Laois, and Offaly all lost. So that was a brilliant weekend for football. And it kind of shows the competitive streak is back for the football, and the championship is well and truly back. And as for hurling, we had a few surprises as well. Clare beating Tipperary, that was a big shock there. And of course, your own county Dublin beating Wexford. I'm sure you're delighted about that. Some very good action this weekend, and the championship is well and truly back. It's taken only 2 weeks for it to light up, but aren't we delighted? It has lit up.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think you made some good points all right there, like in regards to some surprise results in there. Like I think a lot of people did tip Cavan to beat Antrim, but I don't think many people expected it to be as significant as it was. But the big shock was definitely Galway winning away at Mayo, and I suppose we'll start off by discussing that result. It was Mayo 16 points, Galway 114. Galway obviously starting the brighter, getting that goal from Johnny Heaney. Great bit of work from Damien Comer to set him up. But Mayo, once again, they seem to, I suppose Pat Spillane was going on a bit of a rant afterwards, and he probably wasn't wrong in a lot of what he said. Mayo would make it a bit insane because you do watch them and they're doing so much of the same thing all the time. And then towards the end of the game, it's like they just wake up for the final 5 to 10 minutes and they just start playing football. You'd wonder if they could keep that same intensity from the first minute to the 70 minutes, they'd probably win the All-Ireland, or they'd be very, very close. But it just seems to be that in the final, they just seem to take a long time to wake up.
That's the thing, yeah, and I actually echo Pat Spillane's comments there. I did stats in the game yesterday. It was weird. Like Mayo had 12 wides yesterday. Like that, you can't have that scoring statistic against a team like Galway. Compare that to Galway, who had 3 wides. That was the difference, complete difference in the game. And Mayo fans should have no excuse about that. Maybe the fact Killy O'Connor was a bit rusty. I know he's a superb footballer, don't get me wrong, but it's his first start since clear of the league last year. That was always going to take its toll. In fairness to Ryan O'Donoghue, he scored 4 points, 3 from play. So, in fairness, he did well yesterday. But just not enough forwards stepped up for Mayo, and that was a bit of a worry for them. Dermot O'Connor as well coming back from injury. There was too many players coming back from injury. You have to wonder, if Mayo had all their players fit at the same time, would they win the All-Irelands? They don't at the moment, and they rarely ever have over the last few years. It was Killian O'Connor last year. Now it's Tommy Conroy this year. Dermot O'Connor came into the game unfit. So that's a question for me. But as for Galway, superb victory. And it's the monkey off the back that Pádraig Joyce needed. And Galway plays some superb stuff. I said earlier on in the podcast, in the Division 2 campaign, they're too good for Division 2. There was no questions about their forwards. They're superb. But their defence yesterday was superb. Absolutely superb. Liam Silk, a cornerback, was brilliant. Their goalkeeper was very good as well. Dealt with the pressure. Paul Conroy, midfields, colossal. Damien Comer only scored 1 point. He got man of the match, but scored 1 point per play. but still he was doing so much donkey work around the middle of the field, around the backs. And that's what you need in the forward, players that will fight for the team. And Galway had that abundance yesterday and deserved their victory, definitely. And for Mayo, it's back to the drawing board now. And when you look at the teams going into the qualifiers, Armagh, who we'll talk about later, there's a few others as well. It's going to be a tough road for Mayo. They might get to Croke Park, but it'll be a much harder route than it possibly could have been.
Yeah, it will be tough for them, all right. And I suppose losing at home to Galway as well at McHale Park, I mean, that will definitely be one that will hurt James Horan, make no mistake about that. But as you were saying with Galway, like there have been a lot of questions around their defence, and there certainly was in the first half of the league. But when you look towards the end of the league and you look towards obviously I suppose this game as well, like a lot of improvements around there defensively. And as you said there, like players like Jack Lynn, Sean Kelly, all doing very, very well. And for Mayo, like what you said, like with Killian O'Connor and even Ryan O'Donoghue to a certain extent, like they just didn't have that same threat or that same sort of power that we'd normally see with Mayo. And, you know, that's a couple of defeats now on the bounce. You know, I think they've got one win in their last 5. Obviously, they beat Kildare on the final day of the league. 2 defeats on the bounce. They're in a poor run of form, but for Galway, like you have to give them the credit because defensively they were brilliant. And one thing that impressed me as well was that they didn't, even at the end of the game, even though Mayo started to turn it up, they didn't panic too much and they didn't let go of themselves a bit like Monaghan last year. So a lot of composure kept in those final minutes.
Yeah, definitely. And that's credit to Power Joyce, credit to Keane O'Neill as well. I actually criticised him at the start of the year because he didn't do enough at Cork, I thought, before going into the Galway job. But he seems to have driven something into these Galway players, all right. And he shows what a great coach he is. Like he's renowned for setting his team up really defensively and really well organised. It's only taken a while now, but it's come at the right time into the championship. And credit has to go to him. Credit has to go to Power Joyce. Like when you think about it, Power Joyce had a few setbacks over the last few years. You look at COVID in 2020 when they were on form. They didn't perform well coming back from that. They only beat Roscommon before this season. But this season, there's a lot changed. And if that is credit to Power Joyce, what a superb manager he is. Shane Walsh as well, he's only come back from injury. Like Killian O'Connor, we were saying, has come back from injury. Shane Walsh is around the same scenario there, and he performed excellent yesterday. So it's a credit to the Galway players, the Galway management team, and fair play to them, all right. But for Mayo, it's just the same old story. I don't know how they're actually going to recover from this going into the qualifiers. Like, it's not going to be a situation where they go into a game, let's say against Limerick in the Gaelic grounds, or a team like Leitrim or someone like that. They're going to play some top quality opposition now. There's a very good chance they'll play the likes of Armagh or even the like of Derry if they lose next week to Tyrone. Like Derry, imagine going to Derry in Celtic Park. That'll be a hard trip for Mayo. And I actually expect Derry to nearly win this game, judged by Mayo's form, if the draw is like that. So it's a very hard run for Mayo. But for Galway, superb by the management, superb for the players, and utterly deserved a victory yesterday. And they'll probably go into the Connacht final now, but I think Roscommon could actually beat them in the Connacht final. I know Galway performed pretty well, but Roscommon will be waiting in the wings now. They'll have an easy route to the final, but both of them at the final again should be very interesting there. Not to disregard Leitrim and Sligo, no offence, but them two are most likely going to be in the final. So it's going to be an exciting final there, Galway, Roscommon. But as for Mayo, jeez, it's going to be a hard road, and considering the form they're on, it could get even worse.
Yeah, like one thing I would say as a Dublin fan is I've learned enough times not to write Mayo off. And even I was saying yesterday in the reaction, I feel like if with Mayo, it's a strange one. I feel like if there wasn't qualifiers, they would have found a way to win that game. And that's not to discredit Galway, but I just feel like with Mayo and the All-Ireland and when it's on the line, like or especially in semi-finals, quarter-finals, like they just seem to find the ways to keep themselves alive. But like obviously a lot of people questioning James Horan at the minute, and I suppose his tactics. I thought his substitutions were far too late once again, which has been a big criticism of Mayo in the last couple of seasons. He seems to wait for a lot of things to happen before he makes those subs. His style, his attacking style as well, that he's obviously had with Mayo, just doesn't seem to get working. And some players turn up, sometimes they don't. Even like in around the middle, I thought Mayo were quite poor yesterday. So, I mean, it's going to be very tough for Mayo. Like, you can't write them off, and they still obviously have, Robbie Henley, Oisin Mullen, these lads to come back in. Killian O'Connor, I'm sure, will be a little bit more fit by the time that game by the time qualifiers comes around. But as you said, like, I think for Mayo, it's going to be so tough now, because if they had got past Galway, they could have played Leitrim, they could have tested things out, another game for Cillian O'Connor. Not to discredit Leitrim, but it would have been a bit like a challenge game in some respects, whereas now, like, they're going to be going into potentially a tough game. And as Sir Klopp says here, the first round of qualifiers is going to be a minefield. Mayo and Armagh, with Monaghan and Derry possibly to join them, so it's going to be very, very tough.
It is, yeah, definitely. And as I said, with Mayo, James Horan making the subs too late. Another issue as well, Aidan O'Shea. I thought he was an honest yesterday. Like, I was watching it with my dad yesterday, and he was asking, is Aidan O'Shea actually playing? I was saying, well, he is technically playing, but he's just not touching the ball. So that's another issue. We've said so many times about Aidan O'Shea in these big games. Where is he? Simply, where is he? And even at the end of the game, you would think Mayo would use common sense, put him into the square to try and test the Galway defence. They didn't do that. That was a big thing. And even I was mentioning that previously. To use Aidan O'Shea, you don't put him centre back. You don't put him midfield at this stage of his career. You put him in the square where he's dangerous to win ball. I get Jordan Flynn was injured yesterday and he's a big loss. But surely I would say there was other midfielders there to go into Aidan O'Shea's place, and him to come onto the pitch then to make a difference and just throw him out in the last few minutes. Like, the worst you could do is like when you think about it, a lot of teams just punt it into the sky and then get a goal out of it. Case in point, the under 20 the last day, Jack Lavin from Sligo hitting it right into the square and then ends up at the back of the net. Sometimes Mayo don't have to do these fancy things. They don't have to overcomplicate things. Just put them in the square and you get your just reward sooner rather than later. Like, so, yeah, but as you say, as Sir Klopp said in the comments there about the qualifiers, like, it's going to be very hard when you look at, even, I don't want to toot my own horn, no, but if Mayo comes out to Páirc Uí Chaoimh to play Cork, like, if the Cork fans get behind their team, I don't know, there's a few others, Limerick as well. Limerick could make it tough at the Gaelic grounds. Clare could be tough at Cusack Park. There's a lot of places that Mayo just don't want to go now. So that's going to be tough. And considering, as we said there, their form is dreadful. Jeez, I wouldn't want to be a Mayo fan right now going through the minefield that is the qualifiers. And when you look at the teams there, I wouldn't be surprised if Mayo don't make it out and go into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, it's a strange one, and like you said, even with Aidan O'Shea, like, I didn't think he was too bad yesterday. He probably was very quiet, all right, but it is a strange one. Like, I think Aidan or James Horan at this stage might as well put Aidan O'Shea in goal, because he's just putting him everywhere. Like, and it just seems to be trying to fit him into the team. Like I've said before, I don't know if Aidan O'Shea has something on James Horan. Do you know what I mean? I don't really know what's going on there, but it's a bit of a strange one, all right. I suppose for Galway, though, like, this result really could propel them onto big things, in my opinion, because, we've seen them under Pádraic Joyce. Like, they haven't really got a big win against any of the big teams, really, since, that 2020 league form. This is their big, they're probably their biggest championship win since they beat Kerry in 2018. So, when you have Shane Walsh fully fit, Damien Comer fully fit, players coming through like Matthew Tierney, defensively, they look fairly sound. Galway, they very well may be dark horses here, and they could potentially do something special this year. Because I think a lot of people were looking at Mayo as potential All-Ireland contenders, and Galway now have gone and beaten them. So
that's the thing, yeah. Galway do look very good defensively, and they look good offensively as well. But my argument as well, going into the Connacht final, like, Roscommon wouldn't have been tested really going into the Connacht final, like Galway have been, and they might have put a lot into that game. Well, they did put a lot into that game against Mayo. And I just wonder, will Roscommon have too much for Galway? They had too much for them in the Division 2 final. And we've seen this before, Galway. They put off a very good result against Mayo and then just lose in the final to Roscommon or whoever. So it's going to be still a tough road for Galway. They still have obstacles to get over. Well, the next game will be easy against Leitrim, no offence, no, but they'll get over that. But Roscommon will be the acid test now. If they beat Roscommon, then you could say, geez, Galway are All-Ireland contenders now. But I wouldn't say after that win yesterday, it's a brilliant win, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't say Galway are All-Ireland contenders just yet after that win. They need to back it up with another big win now. And they're definitely up there with the All-Ireland contenders. And as you rightly said, they haven't had a very good season, really, since 2018, when they reached the semi-final. They reached the Division 1 final as well that year. So they needed that win yesterday. Fair play to Galway. Their defence seems to be improving, but as I've said there, they have to do it in the Roscommon game, defensively and offensively again. If they do that, perform to their best ability yet again, I think you have to put them in the bracket of all other contenders. But I would say it's a bit soon. No, just after one performance, like case in point, I'd put towards the hurling as well. Tipperary put up a brilliant performance last week against Waterford, and then fall flat in their face against Clare. So, you have to back up good performances with great performances. And this is the challenge for this Galway team now to do that against the likes of Roscommon or in a quarter-final of the All-Ireland.
Yeah, it's all about finding that consistency, I suppose, for Galway at the end of the day. But I do think they can take a lot of positives, like even the likes of Tom O'Callaghan there not even getting off the bench yesterday, and Desi Keneally came off the bench there, towards the end of the game. So they do have a lot of attacking options, and they probably are going under the radar a little bit. The JMac podcast saying here as well, sure, even Jason Doherty, he was taken off. I forgot he was playing too. I'm not O'Shea's biggest fan, thought he was okay. Mayo's form came in far too late. Galway will need to up it for the Rossies. And that was the thing. Like, one thing that surprised me as well is like bringing on Kevin McLaughlin with 7 minutes to go. Like, I just didn't understand that at all. Like, I know young Aidan Norm obviously came into the team for Jason Doherty, and he's a prospect, young lad. I'm sure he'll go on to be a good player for Mayo, make no mistake about that. But you're just looking at it and thinking maybe someone like McLaughlin could have came in there earlier. Like, I mean, I thought when he came on, he just provides that bit of spark. He's such an underrated footballer. I don't know what he needs to do to get into the team. Even against Dublin last year, he was very impressive. So, like for James Horn and Mayo, I remember speaking to the RF podcast, and he was saying if James Horn if there was a sporting director role in Gaelic football, James Horn would be the man. But in terms of big in-game decisions, like he got the one right last year when he took Aidan O'Shea off. But even at that, it took it wasn't the substitutions weren't even working up until that Diarmuid O'Connor flick. So yeah, like for Mayo, I don't know how to sum them up at this stage.
You don't know how to sum them up in years gone by, really. Like Stephen Rochford really had the same problem as well, playing the wrong players at the wrong time as well. So maybe it's just a Mayo issue. I don't know what it is, and maybe it's an issue where Mayo are just standing by these players, the likes of Aidan O'Shea, Jason Doherty, as John mentioned there. Like, he was quiet, didn't score anything yesterday. And yes, he performed well in the league, but didn't do it in the championship. That's the big be-all and end-all there. So maybe it's an issue where Mayo managers just stand by players that have been there and done that, and they don't rely on the younger players. A bit like Dublin's problem over the last few years as well. They don't bring in the young players as quickly as possible. Tipperary Hurlers is another example. But the difference is between those counties, Mayo haven't won All-Ireland, and it clearly isn't working at all there. And yeah, it's a tricky one with Mayo. That's probably one of the reasons they haven't won All-Ireland. Another reason Pat Spillane is saying they don't have the forwards. Well, on paper, they do have the forwards. But when you look at the statistics yesterday, 12 wides, the proof is in the pudding there. There clearly isn't cohesion there, and something needs to be done. Like, they have the players, Ryan O'Donoghue, Cillian O'Connor, Aidan Norm. Well, it's a shame that Tommy Conroy isn't fit this year, but still, other players, Diarmuid O'Connor, could step up as well. They have the players, but it's just about putting two and two together and make it a brilliant game. But look, it's just not happening at the moment. Maybe they'll prove me wrong over the last few years. And as you said, you can't write off Mayo. But at the same time, we're judging Mayo to win All-Irelands. And judging by that performance yesterday and performances gone by and managers' decisions, they're a long way off, unfortunately. And it's an unfortunate fact for Mayo fans. But despite reaching 2 All-Ireland finals in a row, you're still far off in All-Ireland as you ever were.
Yeah, like you say, they have the players, but at the same time, I think a lot of teams now have Mayo figured out in many ways, because like Ryan O'Donoghue, I feel like if you stay tight on him, you sort of cut off the service to him, you stop his influence in the game. Like, you're looking at the rest of the Mayo forwards, like Cillian O'Connor, like if he stays fully fit, then fair enough, he could be a big player. Just 1 point from play yesterday, the rest were all from place balls. But other than that, like James Carr, to be fair, kicked 2 very good points, and I thought he played all right. But other than that, like with some of the other forwards, even players coming off the bench, like McLaughlin look all right. But other than that, you just don't know. And like, maybe McLaughlin's getting older there, maybe that's why he's kind of leaving them on the bench. But like, they just don't really. There's just not enough there, I don't think, in my opinion, anyways.
It's a valid point, yeah. But when you look at the under-20 success for Mayo, there should be, definitely. Like, they won the under-21 championship in 2016. They got to an under-20 final in 2018. They have minor success coming through the ranks as well. They were minor All-Ireland champions in 2013. So the talent should be there in that Mayo team. And looking at it on paper, they actually have talented players. But maybe it's an injury problem with Mayo. When you look at Tommy Conroy was injured this year, Cianan O'Connor was injured last year. There's a few other injuries. Owen McLaughlin, well, I suppose it wasn't his fault now last year, but at the same time, you have to kind of question their strength conditioning as well. Why are these key players getting injured? It's not necessarily the whole team, but it's key players in key games and key times in the year. I don't know what it is about Mayo there, but yeah, it's a tough one to comprehend there. But geez, it's going to be a long time before they win All Ireland if they don't sort out all them issues. If they don't sort out, being loyal to some players, if they don't sort out their strength and conditioning issues, if they don't sort out their predictability, they're just not going to win the All Ireland. That's an unfortunate fact, despite how close they've been over the last few years. Like, maybe at the same time we're really too much into it, and we should credit Galway more because they were absolutely superb yesterday. But at the same time, like, Galway should have put them away really. Like, I think they were 6 or 7 points up at one stage. Like, they should have really put Mayo away in the last 10 minutes. But Mayo somehow got back into the game. But I would just wonder if that was someone like Kerry, like they did in the league final, they put them away by 10 points or so. So that's the issue there with Mayo, and that's the thing we're trying to get out of this Mayo team. Is there an All-Ireland in that team? And look at the league final, look at the game against Tyrone in the league, look at the game yesterday. There's not. Simply, there's not. And they've reached 2 All-Ireland finals, but unfortunately, that's as close as they'll get. And maybe Pat Spillane, he didn't have good points over the last few years, but maybe as a point that there's just not an All-Ireland in this team.
Yeah, I suppose, to finish up on Galway, you definitely have to give them a huge amount of credit for getting that victory. Make no mistake about that. Donegal 116, Armagh 12 points in the Ulster Senior Football Championship. Just another very flat performance from Armagh in the Ulster Championship. And there's that old saying sometimes that goes around the Gaelic football in terms of you can go so strong at the start of the National Football League, burn yourselves out by the time it comes around to the Championship. And they just, for Armagh, like, Rian O'Neill didn't score, didn't have too much of an influence in the game. Donegal looked so composed, so comfortable throughout the game. And even when I was watching this, it didn't really feel like a championship game. It didn't really feel like Armagh really wanted to step up the gear and try and make something out of it. Mm-hmm. They're almost content going for points late on, and it was extremely comfortable for Donegal. Like, I know Donegal are a good team, but this was, very, very comprehensive in the end, really.
It was, to be honest. I was watching the game as well, and I was actually surprised about Armagh. I thought they did okay in the first half, in fairness to them. They scored quite a few from play. In the first 20 minutes especially, the sides were level at 5 points apiece. But then in that 15 minutes after that, Donegal outscored Armagh 4-1. And probably that was kind of the change of the game. But when you think about it as well, like, at the start of the half, this is no excuse now. Donegal deserved to win the game. But at the start of the half, Rian O'Neill probably should have got a goal, and that would have put it right back in the melting pot. But at the same time, like, Armagh didn't convert their dominance in that second half spell into scores. And that was a key point in the game. And Donegal came back into the game. They had 2 shots in that period, and they got a goal and a point in that period of time. So that was the difference between the sides. And only Rory Grugan really stepped up for Armagh. It was very disappointing. Jamar Hall was very quiet. Rian O'Neill, other than that goal that should have been, he didn't really do much in the game. Whereas Paddy McBrearty, Michael Murphy, in fairness to him, did very well for Donegal. Very good win for Donegal, and Sean Patton was excellent. Their midfield was very good. But what I will say, the free count was a bit interesting in this game as well. Donegal had 19 frees awarded to them, and Armagh only had 5. Maybe that's a point there, but I think Donegal deserved to win the game. But at the same time, maybe Boris Deegan was picking sides, and maybe something to do in the league. Like, Armagh were involved in 2 brawls. Maybe they called Wolf too often, and maybe refs are just not trusting him now. Maybe that's the issue, why that stat is there. But fair play to Donegal, very good victory. But if key decisions went Armagh's way, maybe this game could have turned.
Should the goal have stood, do you think, in your opinion, at the start of the second half?
It's a tricky one. I think it should have, to be honest. Like, there was no evidence of Sean Patton being pushed. It was just really only flicking the ball into the net. Like, so, like, I didn't see any problem with the goal, but clearly Maurice Deegan did. But at the same time, maybe the refs don't trust Armagh. That's the issue. But honestly, I think the goal should have stood. I don't think it would have changed the outcome. I still think Donegal would have won the game. I think they were much better throughout the whole game, really. But and it took a while for Armagh to kick in. But maybe if that goal went in, maybe if it was worded correctly, who knows what would have happened. But yeah, Donegal were deserving victors. But as I say, the key moments of the game, if those went Armagh's way, maybe this result could have turned. And I think a lot of Armagh people will not invite Maurice Deegan to many parties in the future.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he'll be the first name on the invitation for the barbecues or whatever. But I think for Donegal, though, I mean, one man that will certainly be getting invited to a lot of parties, barbecues, all the rest is definitely Michael Murphy, because he delivered once again for Donegal, 6 points on the day. And again, with Murphy, like, it's just that leadership role that, you know, him obviously being the captain, when he drops around the middle as well, like, he almost plays 3, 4, 5 positions at times. Like, he's one of those rare players that can be named a full forward, but almost dictate the play of the game, dictate the tempo of the game. Like, I thought he was brilliant, and Paddy McBurty with 1-2 as well. Like, when you look at Donegal, they are a strange team, because you don't know what you're going to get with them. Like, they could go out to Cavan and deliver a miserable performance, and potentially Cavan could potentially sneak it. But at the same time, with Donegal, they also produce some big performances as well, and they seem to have a habit of doing that against Armagh recently.
They've had a habit of doing it at the start of the championship as well, like in the quarterfinals and the semi-finals of Ulster Championships, and then once they reach Croke Park, they fade. That's the problem with Donegal. That's my problem with Donegal over the last few years. Their inconsistency at times. Like, they produced a brilliant performance now yesterday, but at the same time, they could go into the Cavan game and lose it. That's the nature of Donegal, to be honest with you. But to give them where credit is due now yesterday, Michael Murphy was superb. Paddy McBurty was brilliant. Jason McGee, I thought, was brilliant in the middle of the field, claiming kickouts left, right, and centre. Sean Patton was astute now yesterday, very good. It was 100% kick-out rate for a while now yesterday, up to the last few minutes when the game was really up. Their defence was very good. Ryan McHugh got man of the match in the end. Like, to be honest, you could have given man of the match to any of the Donegal defenders or forwards or midfielders, especially. They were absolutely superb. And yeah, they have players coming off the bench. Like Noel O'Donnell was on the bench, made a difference yesterday. Conor O'Donnell came on. Shane O'Donnell did well when called upon yesterday. So yeah, very good performance for Donegal. And they do have the players, not as much as Mayo now, but they do have very good players in their panel. But it's all about consistency though with Donegal. They have to follow it up with a win against Cavan and a win in the Ulster final. And of course a win in the All-Ireland quarterfinals. Or else this results won't mean much, to be honest with you. And when you look at the record against Armagh as well, 2 wins out of 2 this year, that's not bad for Donegal. And on Armagh as well, I was thinking as well during the game, is Kieran McGeady something like the Maurizio Pochettino of GAA? Like, he does well at teams, but not necessarily wins trophies. When you think about it, he did well at Kildare, he didn't win a trophy, he didn't win an Ulster Championship. At Armagh, he hasn't won an Ulster Championship or any meaningful trophy. So he does improve teams, but the question is, can he take them to the next level? And looking at yesterday's performance, especially, it doesn't seem so.
Yeah, like, and even at the kickouts as well, like, they were just, you know, they were struggling so much winning those kickouts. Poor passes at times as well, just a little bit sloppy, and you know, they also conceded the short kick out. They allowed Donegal to get possession all the time from their own kick out. So it was an interesting way of playing, make no mistake about it. And how do you reckon they'll get on in the qualifiers? We were talking about Mayo going in there. At least Mayo have a track record of coming through the qualifiers, getting big wins. Whereas Armagh, like, it's a young enough team, you know, give or take, obviously with some of the new players that have come in there in the last couple of seasons. But McGeeney has been there a while, and some of those players have been there a while. Whilst you know, a lot of them are young, and they'll probably still be there for a while yet. But like, there is pressure on McGeeney here, because I feel like, you know, they're one more defeat in the qualifiers away from potentially, you know, McGeeney getting the exit door.
when you look at their record of the qualifiers, actually, I think since 2013 or 2014, they've only reached the All-Ireland quarterfinals twice, in 14 and 17. They might have produced very good players down through the years, and they might have got close, like against Mayo in 2019 in that game in McHale Park where Rian O'Neill was superb. But the bottom line is they haven't reached the quarterfinal often enough, and that's the trouble with Armagh. They have some very good players. Stephen Campbell actually came on yesterday and added a bit of spice into the game. But at the same time, you would say the Mayo's form is dreadful, but they do have a very good record of coming through qualifiers, and they're a seasoned outfit. When you look at Armagh, they haven't done it often enough. That's the trouble with them. And even if they come down to somewhere down south, like away from home, that'll be a difficult one for Armagh. They might be better than the likes of Clare or Limerick, but it will be a very tough game for Armagh, and that might take a lot out of the players as well. So, like, I kind of worry for Armagh there, not necessarily their form or their players, but I'd worry for them because they haven't got to the latter stages of the championship often enough. That's the trouble with Armagh. But Kieran McGeeney has with Kildare. That's positive, I suppose. But when you look at McGeeney, he's been with Armagh now since 15 or 16. He's been there a long time now. You would think this year was the year where they had to win an Ulster Championship, or at least get to look at All-Ireland semi-final. And there was a lot of hype around Armagh at the start of the year, but maybe we have to take into account, no offence with Dublin, Aaron, but Dublin were pretty bad that time. Tyrone were basically on the beach. So maybe Armagh's results were a bit taken out of context than they actually were, to be honest with you. Like the next game they drew against Monaghan after that. They lost against Mayo. So yeah, they beat Kildare, but Kildare's far away from home. So maybe when you dig deep into Armagh's league results, yes, they finished third in the league, but at the same time, did they really have to work that hard to get those wins? I'm not so sure looking back at them now. So maybe it's a valid argument, but there's a lot of pressure now on McGeady. If he doesn't deliver, if he doesn't get to an All-Ireland quarter-final, I think he's gone.
Yeah, I'd have to agree there as well. Like I think, like they finished on 7 points in the league. They actually finished on the same points as Donegal in the league. And actually, when you look at it, it was only 2 points clear of the relegation zone. So, you know, potentially maybe the fixture list was a little bit kind to Armagh to start with Dublin being all over the place, and I suppose Tyrone obviously away on their holidays. I suppose another team that will certainly be celebrating obviously from the weekend, and I'm sure if John's watching he can he'll be able to rub it in, because I incredibly tipped Antrim to win this game, which was definitely a big L from me, make no mistake about that. Big win for Cavan, 13-point victory. Antrim pretty woeful, to be honest, throughout very much the majority of the game, really. And to be honest, Cavan should have won this by more. I mean, the fact that we're only a point up at half time for me was like, how on earth are they only a point up here? They should have been 2-7, 2-8 up. There were, so many silly wides and missing goal chances and all the rest. But to be fair to them, they stuck at it in the second half, and for once they actually put a team away with conviction.
They did, yeah. They were very convincing. And even I said at the predictions with GAA this during the week, I said Antrim would win by 3 points as well. I was so confident that Antrim would win the game. I was the same as you. I just thought their Division 3 campaign was excellent. Cavan didn't look particularly good in Division 4, but they showed. And Cavan showed more than anything they're a championship team rather than a league team. That's a brilliant thing to have, because championship's obviously the cake and the cream of the whole lot. So yeah, very good win for Cavan, excuse me. Patrick Lynch with 8 points. Garrett McKiernan won 2. What a superb footballer he is. Raymond Gallagher league from the front. But I was very disappointed with Antrim. I thought they'd put up more of a showing than they actually did. They kind of sat back and invited pressure. I was watching the first few minutes of the game. Cavan should have got about 2-3 goals in the first few minutes. That was the most disappointing aspect for Cavan. So yeah, it's a very tough one to take for Antrim there. But again, like same with Armagh and Donegal, actually, Antrim had 4 yellow cards and a red card. I don't think Cavan got a yellow card in the game. So maybe Jerome Henry maybe took sides in that too. So maybe that was a thing there, and the crowd were definitely getting on Jerome Henry's back. And there was a example, I think Paddy Lynch and Owen McCabe had a fight as well, and only Owen McCabe got a yellow card. I'm not sure what was the issue there, but Paddy Lynch didn't get booked at all. So maybe that was an indication there that Antrim just weren't trusted on the field of play, and maybe that's another example there of referees taking sides and they shouldn't. But take nothing away from Cavan, superb victory there, and they probably should have won it by more. They probably should have been much more further ahead in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely, and you don't know what Michael McCann obviously said to Jerome Henry for his for his first yellow card, so it's hard to really judge whether. I've seen a lot of people say that was an unfair red card, but I do think the second one was a yellow, and I think the first one, like obviously we don't know what he said, so referees certainly don't deserve abuse. So if he's saying something fair, like over the top and way too abusive, then the yellow card is definitely the right decision there. So. But look, interesting enough, the last time Donegal bet Armagh, they played Cavan a couple of weeks later and they lost. Could Cavan maybe cause a shock against Donegal? Having a look at their, they've obviously had that win over Donegal 2 years ago. And as you say, you obviously have Kieran Brady obviously back in the side as well. Paddy Lynch looks as good as ever. Garrod McKernan looking good. Thomas Galligan looks more, fully fit now as well. So. Maybe Cavan might be able to cause a shock there.
And there's a lot of onus on this game for Cavan, because if they lose this game, they'll go into the Taunton Cup. And I'm not sure John would want to be in that competition as a Cavan fan himself. So, yeah, this is a huge game now for Cavan. Huge game. If they win this, it'll be absolute delirium in Cavan after the game, I'll tell you that. But, as you said, Thomas Galligan, not necessarily scoring as often, no, but contributing very well. Garrod McKernan, excellent. Paddy Lynch, excellent. Cormac O'Reilly, a corner forward, very good. Martin Riley even came off the bench and scored 2 points. The experience he'll have on his shoulders if he comes on against Donegal as well. So, and the issue with Donegal we mentioned is the consistency. So Cavan definitely have an incentive to go on and win this game. It'll be a big game for Cavan to take this scalp against Donegal, and Donegal will be up for it too. They should be up for it, to be honest with you. They've been down this road so many times now where they produce a very good performance and then they follow it up with a mediocre one. So it's more of a chance now for Donegal to see what they're made of, but I'd give Cavan every chance of going on to win this game. I wouldn't necessarily predict an outcome, a score outcome in this game, considering I predicted Antrim to win by 3 points this weekend. So, I'm saying Cavan will put it up to Donegal, but I'm saying this now, but at the same time, Donegal could put up a brilliant performance and put away Cavan by 10 points or something like that. So, that's the unpredictability with Donegal at times. So, I'll give Cavan every chance of winning this game, and Donegal will have to be on their best performance to try and win this game. It could be a potential banana skin.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Donegal are too strong, too powerful with the players that they have in Murphy, McBrearty, very good in around the middle, Michael Langan there as well. You could see them causing a lot of damage to Cavan, and obviously Cavan haven't played a team of Donegal's quality really since they played Tyrone in the Ulster Championship last year. But what you would say about Donegal is they do seem to sometimes fluff their line sometimes, and they don't always put teams away. Kind of in a similar fashion to Cavan, actually, maybe when they were down in Division 4. And both of these two sides are probably more championship teams than league teams. So it certainly will be an interesting one. I think as well, maybe where that game is played, I think is going to be interesting, whether it's, a neutral venue or even, maybe John can let us know on that one. As he says here, we were always going to win. Lynch, brilliant. Garrod McKernan goal, brilliant. Timeless. Marty Riley coming on. So yeah, a lot to be positive for the Cavan folk. Make no mistake about it. And where that game's played is actually going to be an interesting one as well. Moving on to the Leinster Championship then, and we had certainly some interesting results here. Wexford, first of all, getting a big win over Offaly, 115 to 112. Planning to go to the game next weekend, and I was saying to one of my mates who were planning on going, or who's going to be coming with me, he's not a big GAA fan, so I had this already sold that Offaly were going to win this one, and we were going down to Tullamore. But fair play to Wexford, I mean, and Ben Brosnan, what a wonderful performance. 1-9, I think, in total from him. Extraordinary performance. And Wexford, strange one. They have a terrible league campaign. Offaly very much on the up, although they got relegated, nearly beat Cork. But Wexford put off the victory.
Same time, though, Wexford beat Cork in the challenge game, we're pointing out as well. So Wexford actually beat Cork, and Offaly didn't beat Cork. So maybe this wasn't as a surprise as people thought. But seriously, what a brilliant result for Wexford. Ben Brosnan, superb, throwing back the years. And when you think about it, he was a part of that team that pushed Dublin so close in 2011 in Croke Park. So he's been around now for 11, 12 years. So superb from him. What a superb performance from Ben Brosnan. But kind of disappointed with Offaly. I know they had injuries and all that, and they had the under-20s during the week, but at the same time, like they'd put Tomás O'Shea in the backroom team, John Mahon as manager. They have some very good players all over the field. They pushed Cork all the way. They did well in Division 2, and then they lose to Wexford. Like, very disappointing from them, I have to say. And it's going to push them back a good one now. And I'm not sure they'll win the Tailteann Cup now. It'll take a lot out of them. But as for Wexford, like, I predicted Wexford would go up to Division 3. And they performed pretty damn poor in Division 4. They finished 6th in the league. And they go on and win it. Like, Wexford are honestly the most unpredictable team in the country at the moment. Like, they do badly when people expect them to do well. And then when they expect to do badly, they do very well. So it's a very weird one with Wexford there. And I'm not sure when they put it up to Dublin now. I know Dublin are in a bit of a state at the moment. But at the same time, like, Wexford are Division 4 for a reason. They were 6th for a reason in Division 4. I think Dublin should put them away. But at the same time, this will give them a lot of positives to go into the Tailteann Cup and make a good run at that competition, seeing as they've beaten one of the favourites for that competition. So, it's a big win for Wexford, really big win. Brilliant performance for Ben Brosnan. But for Offaly, it's going to be a big setback in the next few weeks for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I think for all the work that John Maughan and that team have done, I know they have a couple of injuries, but it definitely will set them back maybe a little bit. And as you were saying there about Wexford playing Dublin, look, I think, it doesn't take a genius to work out that Dublin surely will win that game. Like, let's be perfectly honest, call a spade a spade. But what you would say is, look, when Wexford played Dublin last year at Chadwick's Wexford Park, which is where this game is going to be, they were fairly competitive. Like, they made things tough for Dublin. It was sort of one of the more stranger Dublin performances. I think it was only like a 7-point victory in the end. It wasn't like we exactly blew them away. We didn't score any goals from what I remember. And Wexford were very resolute and sort of went out of the championship with their heads held high. And I think that's why a lot of people tipped them to do quite well in Division 4, because they showed a lot of spirit, determination, desire in that game that they certainly didn't show really at all throughout Division 4. So although you would expect Dublin to certainly win the game quite comfortably, let's be perfectly honest, maybe Wexford can take a bit of confidence from that, and maybe they might be able to, make it another nasty game and, I suppose, keep the score down. I don't know. And then go into the Tailteann Cup with, a bit of momentum and a bit of positivity.
Although it could go the other way as well. Like, this game is actually being shown on Sky Sports on Saturday night as well. So if Wexford play defensive football, people will say, oh, geez, they're not really a likeable team, are they? They're just parking players behind the ball. But if they go all out and, try and win a few fans, Dublin could rip them apart. No matter Dublin's poor fans. So it's a bit of a dilemma for Wexford there. So, yeah, that's going to be a big enough game on Saturday night. I was hearing there should be calls that Louth and Kildare should be shown instead of this game. But
yeah,
at the same,
I'd agree.
Yeah, probably most people would agree with that, because that's a tight game. Both of them are Division 2. But yeah, it's good exposure for Wexford in a way, but at the same time, they're a bit of a dilemma. Do they go all out attack or do they defend deep? It's going to end badly, I think, either way, to be honest, with the game being shown on Sky to the watching world. So it's going to be a tough one for Wexford to try and keep the score down and to try and gain a few followers as well. So yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Wexford, but for Dublin as well, this is going to be a game to show their mettle, to show have they regressed as a team or have they improved in the last few weeks under Jesse Farr despite the Monaghan results. So big game for Dublin performance-wise, more result, because let's be honest, Dublin are going to win the game. But for Wexford, they're in a bit of a dilemma there. Do they play defensively or do they go all out attack? It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it is a weird one. I mean, Dublin have had a lot of defensive issues and defensive vulnerabilities. So I think if Wexford were to get at Dublin and play in a similar fashion to how they played against Offaly, but then again, it just wouldn't be enough, and they'd be far too exposed defensively. And although Dublin have had a few defensive problems, I would expect them to improve as the year goes on and have enough to stop Wexford. So yeah, it's a tough one for Shane Roach. I do have a sneaky feeling they'll probably play how they played against Dublin last year, because it was quite a good template, and they finished the game with a bit of momentum. Although there was nothing else to play for this year, there will obviously be something to play for after this game for Wexford. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Big win for Wicklow, 5-15, Laois 4-12. A bit of a hurling score in many ways, this one. I mean, 9 goals, you had red cards, late drama, all sorts of messing going on in this game apparently. But for Wicklow in Ockram, for some people this might have been a surprise. Not that much for me, because Laois have been on the slide massively, and into the Tailteann Cup they go, and Wicklow they set themselves up with Meath now next weekend, or whenever that game is.
Yeah, it's a very good result for Wicklow. I actually got this bang on. I said Wicklow would win by 6 points, so brilliant result for me there. But yeah, brilliant result for Wicklow. I thought they'd win the game, to be honest with you. I know they went down, but there was a bit of positivity with Wicklow going into the game, and they do have players in their team that could score goals. Like Kevin Gwynn, a hat-trick yesterday. Superb performance from him. Owen Darcy with 1-2. Mark Kenny with 5 points. Very good performance in this Wicklow team, and thoroughly deserved. And Fortress Ockram stays live and kicking, but at the same time, when you look at Laois over the last few games, they are in wretched form, and I would really worry for Billy Sheehan's job, really. I know it's 1 year, but at the same time, they've gone down to Division 4. They've now lost to Wicklow in the Leinster Championship. One embarrassing loss in the Tailteann Cup, and he could be gone after a year. That's the frank reality of it. And I don't know where Laois are going. They have very good players coming through. They've reached an under-20 final, I think, in 2020 against Dublin. They put it up to them that year. But despite them players coming through, they're still getting embarrassing results. And that's a big, big worry for Laois. And real worrying times for them. But for Wicklow, what a superb victory for them. And they'll go on to the Meath game. I think Meath will win the game. I think Meath played Wicklow a few years ago. We thought Wicklow would put it up to them, and then Meath ended up hammering them out the gate. So Meath will probably have a similar enough result, but at the same time, it's a brilliant result for Wicklow. And as I said with Wexford as well, despite going to the next round thinking they'll lose, you'll go into the Tailteann Cup with a bit of positivity now that you could go on and beat a team like Laois or an Offaly. So fair play to Wicklow there, but for Laois, really, really worrying times for them. And I wouldn't want to be a Laois fan at the moment.
Yeah, and the worrying part as well is like their forwards actually aren't doing bad. Like Gary Walsh with 2-2, Evan O'Carroll with 2 points, Mark Barry with 3, O'Sullivan with 1-1 in there. Like attacking wise, they're not doing that bad, but it just seems to be no organisation defensively maybe as well. And you're looking at some of what they're conceding in a lot of games. It certainly would be very, very worrying indeed. Louth, they also finished with 5 goals, 5-10 in the end. Carlow finishing with 10 points there. Sam Mulroy with 2-5. Once again, shooting the lights out for Louth. But look, the likes of Conor Grimes, Kieran Byrne there as well. They're doing well, Louth. Like they're getting a lot of different forwards and players on the score sheet. And as you said there, I think that Louth Kildare game, although Kildare, you'd fancy them. I don't know if that game's going to be on GAA Go or what the story is with that one, but it's definitely a game I think that a lot of people will be curious to see.
I was actually seeing the Scorpio app. It's actually on at 4 o'clock on a Sunday, so it's the same time as Tyrone and Derry, so I don't think it'll be shown anywhere. That's a real shame, really. But as for this game, yeah, it was the only game to go as expected, really, and it wasn't really close. Like, Carlow has statistically the worst defence in the whole National League, and that was in Division 4. So, geez, this wasn't going to end well whatsoever. And Sam Mulroy again, 2-5, superb performance from him. Kieran Bird, I think, is one of the most underrated players in the country. Conor Grimes, superb. Kieran Downs, very good as well. So, yeah, very good performance from Louth. Mickey Hart continues to get this Louth team on an upward trajectory, and fair play to them. I think Kildare will win the game slightly next week, but it should be a very good game. And it's a shame it's not shown live, because when you look at the 2 games actually shown live at Sky next week, they're Monaghan against Down and Dublin against Wexford. To be honest, with no disrespect to Down and Wexford, but they're going to be 2 processions. And that's just not going to show the GAA in a good light, really. Like, that'd be the equivalent of soccer showing like Liverpool against Forest Green Rovers and Manchester City against Grimsby Town. Like, I'm sorry, but like it's like, why do Sky show these games where they're just going to be processions before we even watch them? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I think John mentioned this over the last few weeks in the league as well. The GAA seem to have their eyes blindfolded and say, game there. Like, I'm sorry, but there's just no logic behind it. And Louth and Kildare should be live. To be fair, Derry and Tyrone is live on RT, but Louth and Kildare should be a game live next weekend. I don't see why it's not being shown live. They're two Division 2 teams. Kildare performed very well in Division 1 this year, despite going down. Jimmy Hyland's the next one forward, so that will bring up the viewers even more, seeing him in action. So, I mean, and Samuel Roy, of course, as well. So, I honestly don't see the logic there, but very good win for Louth yesterday, but it's a real shame that game is not shown live next week.
Yeah, I think the reason for why they're shown, I think, is because, not to blow smoke up my own county here, but because it is Dublin, and because of the fact that, and I don't agree with this, by the way, I think it should be Louth Kildare, but because Dublin are obviously such a big county with a big population, and they know there's going to be a lot of, their viewing figures are probably going to be higher than a Louth Kildare game. Although I actually think I think that's what they're thinking. That's their logic behind it. But I actually think it would, Louth Kildare would actually have more viewing figures, because like a lot of neutrals aren't going to watch that Dublin Wexford game. Let's be perfectly honest. Wexford fans might keep an eye on it, but again, they're probably more into the hurling obviously at the minute. Are they really going to want to watch that game? Probably not. They might watch the opening 10-15 minutes. If Dublin build up a 5, 6, 7 point lead, they'll probably switch it off, and you couldn't really blame them for it. So it's a strange one really, and as Jack says here, Galway, Kilkenny is on, so that's probably why. But, they could have the Wexford Dublin game on at 4 on the Sunday, and then have the Louth Kildare game on the Saturday. So it is a little unusual. Celtic 67 says Louth for Sam. I mean, could Louth pull off that shock against Kildare? I mean, it feels like if there's going to be a shock in the Leinster Championship, other than Dublin potentially getting caught, I feel like, it's not inconceivable. And if Mickey Hart does pull it off, he definitely has to go down as, I think he's already one of the greatest of all time. But if he was to do something magnificent with Louth, I mean, you'd surely have to start thinking that this man is God, taking Peter Canavan's title.
Yeah, definitely. If they beat Kildare, that will topple achievements from many managers in the past. But the trouble is they'll have to go on and win the Leinster Championship then. Like Mick O'Dwyer did it with Laois, Paddy O'Shea did it with Westmeath. That's the challenge now for Mickey Hart. I would say it's not inconceivable that Louth could actually win Leinster. Like, I know Louth were Division 4 a few years ago, but at the same time, Dublin have regressed. Kildare are not particularly great at scoring goals. Meath are very inconsistent. So, and Offaly are out of the championship. So, it's not inconceivable that Louth could actually win Leinster and right those wrongs from 2010. I know it's a bit crazy now, but like if they beat Kildare now next Sunday or wherever it is next week, like this is a big opportunity though for Louth to stamp their authority in the Leinster Championship and try and win it. Like the semi-final draws have been made yet. If they get a good draw, someone like a Westmeath, and let's not forget, like if Louth get through Kildare now, and the draw is Louth against Westmeath and Meath against Dublin. They were the two semi-finals, and Louth got to the Leinster final in 2010. History repeating itself there, Aaron, I suppose. Well, if the semi-final draw goes out that way, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, although I wouldn't want to see Dublin get beat anywhere whatsoever. A Louth versus Meath, Leinster final just sort of has that, you'd love to be at that game, put it that way. I think that would be a very, very tense and feisty occasion. I actually would love to see that, to be fair, but I obviously don't want to see Dublin get beat, so it's kind of, it's an interesting one there. But yeah, I suppose we'll move on to some of the hurling results then and crack on with some of the hurling games. And Limerick getting the better of Waterford, 30 points to 221. What a huge win for Limerick. Waterford coming close towards the end of the game, but Limerick, even without Keane Lynch, who obviously goes off injured, no Cole Hayes as well, no Peter Casey, no Shamie Flanagan, they still seem to have Waterford's number. And incredibly enough, that goal from Stephen Bennett, Waterford's first goal against Limerick in the championship since like 2018 or something like that. Crazy stuff, really. Yeah,
brilliant result for Limerick there. And when you look at Kyle Hayes, Keane Lynch, all them out, and Conor O'Neill actually came on for Keane Lynch and got 3 points. So that just shows you the amount of talent that Limerick have off the bench, and it's brilliant to see from a Limerick point of view. And there's an argument for Waterford. Without the goals from Stephen Bennett and Jack Prendergast, would they have actually been in this game? They didn't perform particularly badly. Like Dizzy Hutchinson was superb again, on Saturday night. But like there is the argument, if the goals didn't go in like they did so quickly, like would Watford have actually got a decent result out of it? Like there was an argument there, but fair play to Limerick there. They got the win, they dug it out, and that shows the sign of a great team as well. And what I will say as well, Aaron Gallan, I swear to God, what a player. 6 points from play. Like, oh my God. Like, I think, honestly, he's one of the most underrated players in the country when you think about it. Like, people rate the likes of Patrick Horgan higher than him, the likes of Seamus Cannon, to an extent, TJ Reid better than him, but Aaron Gallan is right up there. He's not just a free taker. He adds points from play now, and he's a superb player. And well done to Limerick to win this game. But Watford, you'd expect now these two sides to reach the Munster final. And to be honest, look at the game on Saturday night now. I'd really want them to play another 2 times this year. The Munster final and the All-Ireland final. Wouldn't that be absolutely brilliant? Like, put rivalries to one side with me being a Cork fan, you being a Dublin fan. Wouldn't you love if these two reached the All-Ireland final and reached the Munster final and played twice more this year? Wouldn't that be something special?
It would be, definitely. Like, obviously Limerick and Waterford, it's reminding me a bit of the Dublin Mayo rivalry at the minute, where Dublin just, although Mayo were doing so much right and we're bringing through so many good players and kept showing so many fight and kept coming back, Dublin always seemed to have their number, obviously up until last year. From that 2012 to 2021, Dublin just consistently had Mayo's number year in, year out in both league and championship. And similar here with Limerick. I know Waterford beaten Limerick a couple of times in the league, but in the championship, Limerick, like, no matter what Waterford can seem to throw at them, no matter what injuries Limerick seem to have, they just seem to keep finding a way to get over the line against Waterford. And 30 points again. They don't tend to score many goals against Waterford. They don't seem to really be too fixated on goals. And as you were saying as well, like, it's an interesting one with Aaron Gallan. I feel like maybe the reason why he doesn't get rated so highly is probably because, number one, the other players that are on that Limerick team. Like, I think a lot of people obviously speak about Cole Hayes and they speak about Cian Lynch and, defensively, obviously looking at Dan Morrissey and, Jeremy Burns, who's been absolutely incredible so far this year. They just have so much talent. Shamie Flanagan, like, Aaron Gallan probably goes under the radar a little bit, with the likes of Tipperary, with the likes of Shamie Callan at Tipperary and Patrick Horgan with Cork. They're superstars. They're just big players, and they're usually the men to turn up when those teams produce big results. Whereas with Limerick, Aaron Gallan doesn't need to be at his best week in, week out, because someone else will step up. And I think that's the thing about Limerick, is they just have so many options. And as you said, like Cathal O'Neill coming off the bench, getting a couple of points. David Reedy and Pat Ryan have looked good as well. Like, they could have another injury. Like, Aaron Gallan could be out missing for the next game, and they'd probably still find a way to get the victory. And that just shows how well-rounded their squad is at the moment.
It does, definitely. And on David Reedy and Pat Ryan, they scored 2 points off the bench each in the last 2 games. So point a game, really. Like, what a superb tally from them in the last 2 games. And they put Cork away pretty much at ease last week. And with Waterford, they dug in. And Waterford are up there with one of the All-Ireland contenders. And it kind of shows you Limerick are just not gone away. Like, a lot of people are saying, geez, their league form, they're clutching at straws. Like, even Des Cahill and Donald Cusack were joking about it last night in the Sunday game, saying we're clutching at straws of this Limerick team. We're trying to down them, but there's just no way of downing them despite their league form. They are just a class act, and they're going to win the All-Ireland this year. I know Waterford have performed excellent in the last few games, and especially in the league. I still think Waterford will be close challengers to Limerick, and it showcased a point on Saturday, but Limerick are just an unreal outfit. And easily, Limerick could beat this Waterford team by 15 points. Not necessarily Waterford are a bad team or anything. It's just the class that Limerick have in abundance throughout the team. And I said this on your podcast previously. I think Limerick could win 5-6 in a row. They're that kind of a team. They have the strength, they have the physicality, they have the skill, they have the management decisions. Like, they have a superb team all over the field, and it's going to be very hard to stop Limerick in the next few years, never mind weeks. Like, it's going to be very, very tough. But as for Waterford, like I mentioned, Aaron Gallan, he scored 1-8 from play so far in the 2 games. Dacey Hutchinson's also achieved the same with 1-8 from play. Like, He's a very good player and doesn't go under the radar as much as Galan, but what a superb player he is for club and county. A brilliant example for players up and down the country, really. And Waterford will still challenge Limerick. I think they've Cork in the next game at Walsh Park. I think they'll win that, and then Clare the last game. I think they should be good enough to win that. So I think Waterford will still reach the Munster final along with Limerick, but I don't think they're up to Limerick's level quite yet. Will they be up to Limerick's level the next few years? It's really down to Limerick when they'll stop this brilliant form.
Yeah, I think Waterford need to get a big win over Limerick, really, just to try and, I suppose, number one, make this a big rivalry. Like, it's hard for it to be a rivalry when it's all just been one-sided, really, in the last couple of years. Although Waterford have been very impressive and probably are the closest team to Limerick at the middle, or at the moment. Like, Gerard Hegarty as well was very impressive. Like, he scored 2 points, but just his hold-up play as well. Like, and you see at times when he gets the ball, like, he's not the quickest on the ball, but he's just so physical and he's so hard to dispossess. And you know, when you've got Darragh O'Donovan, William O'Donoghue in behind them as well, like he's just able to sort of do those type of things that he does in bringing the ball forward. So, you know, as you were saying there, just so much quality all across the pitch. But I suppose from a Waterford perspective, though, could you argue, like, you know, obviously the 2 goals late on, and I think they did play well, but they didn't score a point in the final 20 to 25 minutes of the game. Did they maybe burn themselves out a little bit? Like, they've obviously had a lot of games in the league. They've gone full tilt towards the end of the league, like put up a big score against Wexford, obviously, you know, put up a big result against Cork as well. You know, very testing game against Tipperary. Like, they've played a lot of hurling in the last couple of weeks, and did it maybe catch up with them a little bit, do you think, in you know, towards the end of that game?
That could possibly be an argument, yeah. But I suppose in the next few weeks, following on from that point, they have a 3-week break, I think, for the next game. Like, I think next week and the week after they have a break. So that's going to be key for Waterford, though, to recuperate their players for the next few weeks. And they have Cork after that in Walsh Park. So that'll be a big game for Waterford there. And to be honest, against Cork and Clare, they'll do enough to win the game, but I don't think they'll tire themselves out too much, if that makes sense. So, that is an argument, definitely, that they did tire themselves out in the last few weeks, look at the league. And, yeah, as I said, like, without those goals, would they have really been in the game in the last few minutes? I don't think so. So that's something Waterford need to improve on. Yes, they did well in the first few minutes against Limerick, but it's no good when you're not scoring points in the last 20 or 25 minutes or so. So, you know, it's going to be a tough road to beat Limerick for Waterford, but I still think they'll get to the Munster final. And as for burning themselves out, that's a valid argument. Yeah, I think they kind of did, but I think the next 3 weeks will be vital for Waterford to try and recuperate themselves for the Cork game in Walsh Park.
Yeah, and then obviously in the other game, it was Tipperary 2-16, Clare 3-21. A game really that was probably dead and buried really at half-time. Clare were 3-11 to 7 points up. Tipperary were just 4 points from play in the first half. Nowhere near good enough really from the Premier County. I mean, they didn't really seem to show that same fight, determination and heart that they showed against Waterford. The same performance levels weren't quite there. But look, from a Clare perspective, you have to give them a lot of credit. I think a lot of people have, you know, including myself, been looking at Clare as maybe a bit of a dark horse to go on a bit of a run, to do something special, maybe to be a team, not necessarily to win the All-Ireland, but certainly challenge for it and come close. And, you know, when you've got Tony Kelly, probably the best hurler in the country, if not the best, you know, scoring 1-7. Peter Duggan back in the team, he starts scoring 1-2. You've obviously got Shane O'Donnell back in, John Conlon obviously playing at centre back again. You know, so many options all across. Still have Mark Rogers to come back in as well. So, like, for Clare, so much attacking players, and you know, what a big victory this was.
Huge victory for Clare, and I predicted actually Tipperary to win this game, judging by the performance last week. And it kind of shows, like, you have to. It's same with Donegal, or the same with Galway that I mentioned in the football as well. You have to put two performances back to back together. Tipperary just didn't do that. They didn't follow on from last week. Last week's brilliant performance against Waterford, really, where they came out of the traps pretty quickly. But in this game, Clare were in total control. And that's the worrying aspect for Colin Bonner and his side. And as you mentioned there, Tony Kelly, what a superb performance from him. Peter Duggan coming back at the team. And I think that's why people have Clare down as dark horses with him back at the team. Robin Mounsey as well. Patrick Crotty, some very good young players there. And let's not forget Mark Rogers is going to come back, well, hopefully in the next few weeks as well. So imagine if he comes back into the team as well. Clare have some very good forwards in the forward line there. John Conlon, centre back, like Ryan Taylor seemed to do well a midfield yesterday. So yeah, Clare, very good performance from them. Very positive performance indeed. And next week now against Cork, they have to pull it up again, pull up that same performance again. They'll be in Semple Stadium, so they may as well stay there now for the duration of the week. So yeah, it's the challenge for Clare now is to back it up with a very good performance against a Cork team that were really flat in their face against Limerick. So if Clare win that game, you'd seriously say, wait a minute, Clare are really gaining momentum now. So it's going to be a tough one. But as for Tipperary, like for one of their goals, actually, I think Barry Heffernan, they relied on a bit of luck as well to get them even closer than they probably should have. So, like, when you look at that, geez, like Tipperary had a very poor performance, and especially at home as well, at Semple Stadium. We expected in front of their own fans that they perform. They just didn't. And the last two games, now, their next game is against Limerick. God help Tipperary there. They're going to get an almighty hiding there in the Gaelic grounds. So a lot will ride on the matches played, not their games, not necessarily, and hope that Cork and Clare end up at 2 points as well. That's very, very unlikely, to be honest with you. And they have to beat Cork then in Semple Stadium. So it's very unlikely, though, Tipperary are going to get into the All-Ireland series now. And it's another year where Tipperary struggle in the Munster round robin. It's a worrying time for them. But as for Clare, they have to back it up next week. But this is a good start to the championship for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of top performances all across the pitch. Like Ryan Taylor as well with 2 points, and even Ian Galvin before he went off was impressive as well. And as you were saying about Tipperary, like just 3 points from play from their forwards, like all Jason forwards points from what I seen came from place balls, 65s or frees. And again, like, you know, Tipperary, it's a strange one. Like I feel like against Limerick, they'll probably put up a good performance. They'll probably turn up and put it. I don't think it'll be enough to get them the victory, but I think they'll run Limerick close at times in the game, and they'll put in a good performance. But it seems to be in these kind of games that they're expected to win, they seem to just flatter to deceive. Like even last year against Waterford were going into that game in a bit of bad form. They'd obviously beaten Galway, I think, the week previous, but Tipperary haven't delivered a very good first half performance against Limerick, but just seems to be when the going gets tough, they don't seem to have any answers to it.
No, and that's a very tough assessment there in Tipperary, but it's true, really. Like their league form, other than the Kilkenny game against the big sides, against the likes of Dublin and a few others as well, they fell flat on their face, and that was a worrying aspect for Tipperary in general. And when you look at this Munster Championship so far, they might have performed well against Waterford last week, but they still lost the game. So yeah, you have to say it's a very poor time to be a Tipperary fan at the moment. People are saying they're in transition. Like they still have players. Like people are mentioning Cork as all-Ireland contenders, having the under-20 talent. But when you look at Tipperary, the under-20 over the last few years, they beat Cork more than once, really. So Tipperary should have the talent to be challenging the likes of Limerick. But it's a hard one with Tipperary. Like, maybe the young players have been brought in way too late at the same time. We said this last year as well, that it come back to bite them, and it kind of has. Like, they'll have to rely now on next year. It's very unlikely they'll make the knockout rounds, and it's going to be very tough for Tipperary in the next few weeks, and worrying times for Colin Bonner. And is there an argument, actually, Colin Bonner could lose his job now this year after finishing potentially last in Munster? Like, Tipperary fans would not like that whatsoever. And with Tipperary fans, they don't give managers second chances.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, all right. Like, he obviously wasn't the first choice, straight out the gate. I think obviously a lot of people were looking obviously at Liam Cahill. I mean, I doubt he'd even be in the conversation after turning them down the last time, at least not for a couple of years. I know Willie Maher was obviously being linked for quite a while. So yeah, it's an interesting one, all right. And I suppose we'll have to wait and see. I think the main thing for Tipperary is just in the next two games is just to show, like, I think you can accept being beaten by Limerick. I think that's fair enough. But they just need to go down fighting, in my opinion, and play a lot better, because there was a lot of underwhelming performances in that game versus Clare. And we know with the players that they have, we know with the quality that they have, that they certainly can play a lot better. Make no mistake about that. Moving on to the Leinster Championship, big win for Dublin away at Wexford, 23 points to 24. It certainly got very close towards the end. Wexford really turned it up. Obviously, Dublin finishing the game with 14 men as well, but a huge win for Dublin hurling. And it looks like Dublin are in a very good position now. They're obviously 3 points clear of Wexford in that in the top 3 there at the minute. So I suppose Dublin looking pretty good to get out of Leinster at the minute.
They are definitely, and they've played Westmeath as well, so that's a guaranteed 2 points there. So they'll be on 6 points. So fair play to Dublin. What a result for them. And when you look at the scores from play as well, Dublin at 16 points from play, Wexford at 9. That was the difference. Dublin just had more firepower in their armoury. Like when you look at Wexford, they kind of relied on Rory O'Connor leeching a bit too much, in my opinion. When you look at Dublin, Donald Burke is a superb player. Absolutely superb. But when you look at, we talked about Aaron Gallan being underrated. This guy is definitely underrated. What a superb player he is. I've seen him for the Fian in the club championship as well. Seen him over the last few years. He does more than from play, to be honest. From play, to be honest with you, like, geez, what a superb player he is. Fergal Whiteley popping up as well. Chris Crummy popping up when it matters. Sean Brennan with that penalty save as well. Brilliant save, to be honest with you as well. So fair play to Dublin. What a result for them. But for Wexford, a lot of soul searching there. And when you look at their next few games, well, they have to play Laois and Westmeath, so that'll be 5 points on the board. But will that be enough with Dublin at 6? They'll have to go out now and beat Kilkenny. I don't think this Wexford team have the capabilities to do that at this particular moment of time, so it's going to be pretty hard for them. So, Dublin in a very good state at the moment. But as for Wexford, back to the drawing board.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, definitely a lot for them to work on. I mean, like, they were just far too inconsistent in front of goal. Like, a lot of sloppy wides, like way too inaccurate in front of goal. And for Dublin, like, they just managed the game, I thought, very, very well. I got a little bit chaotic towards the end, but they were just chipping away with scores, controlling the game, defensively very good as well. Like, Owen O'Donnell, I thought, had a very good game in there, a fullback. Both were, obviously, both him and Cian O'Callaghan at times struggling on Rory O'Connor and his influence in the game, but largely very, very good. And Donegal Ryan as well, I thought was brilliant. Like, his forward runs at times as well, like, very physical player, hard to dispossess him. So, for Dublin, they're getting options from their scores. Like, Ronan Hayes dropped deeper in the second half, got on the ball. He scored a couple of points as well. Even the likes of Davy Keogh, Paul Crummy coming on, just making an impact, making things tough. And that late block as well from Liam Ryan, I think it was, like, that really did epitomise this Dublin team in many ways. Like, even against Galway last year, like, we don't have the quality maybe in our I know we've got brilliant players in Donald Burke and Ronan Hayes, but we wouldn't have the same quality forwards as a lot of the other big teams in the All Ireland series when you look at Galway, Kilkenny and whatnot. But like, we just have so much fight, and that determination really is what's seen us through in the end. Because if Liam Ryan doesn't make that block right at the end, Wexford probably would have come back and at least got a draw over.
I think it was Danny Sutcliffe that made that block at the end. So, very good. Very, very good block from him. And when you think about it, Danny Sutcliffe actually did score from play with the quality of talent he has. He might the best of days, but to make that block at the end, that's worth 2 or 3 points to you. What a superb block from him. And Dublin just battled it out in the end and got the win. And that's what really good teams do. And I'd agree with you on Dublin. Like, they do have very good players, but they don't have particularly top class players. The likes of Limerick, Kilkenny, Galway have more of those. So Dublin have to rely on sheer work rate as well. And to be honest, most of them players put in 110%. What a superb performance from them. And they did, to be fair, last year as well. They seemed to work very hard under Matty Kenny. When you think about it, Dublin had one disastrous result really in his reign, and that was against Laois in 2019. Like, when you think about it, he's done an excellent job for Dublin over the last few years. And long may continue for them. But for Wexford, there just didn't seem the same fight as Dublin, but I noticed as well. Like, it's all right making errors with sloppy wides and all that. It's 16 overall, I just checked there. But like, if you don't put in the same effort as your opposition, you're hardly going to win the game. and that's the frank reality of it. And Dublin did in the end, and they got the win. They got their just desserts in the end. And fair play to Dublin. They march on though. They'll probably beat Westmeath. They've Galway and Kilkenny as well in the last 2 games. And if you get a point out of 4 there, like, I think Dublin would definitely fancy their chance again to another Leinster final, and that would be brilliant for this Dublin team. The development will be through the roof then.
Yeah, I think there'll be a huge, huge chance, and I think getting to obviously we play one of the Joe McDonagh Cup teams if we didn't get to a Leinster final, and that should be enough. You'd feel for Dublin to get through into the quarterfinals of the All Ireland, which would definitely be a big achievement for this Dublin team. Make no mistake about that. So it certainly will be interesting. All right, and to clarify, the block was on Liam Ryan. I meant to say there from Danny Sutcliffe. Liam Ryan, obviously the Wexford player there, but yeah, big win for Dublin, and they march on with the victory. Looking at some of the other games in Leinster, then 2 very comprehensive results: Kilkenny 234, Laois 114. I mean, no real surprises here. Maybe the margin of victory was a bit of a surprise. I think maybe some people thought Laois might make it a little bit closer, considering how well they played against Dublin, but very, very comprehensive from the Cats on this occasion once again.
Yeah, and we'll go on to the next game as well. That was an even bigger hammering as well. Like, oh my God, like, there was an argument on this at the Sunday game that Westmeath and Laois, these teams should have home games. I'd be totally for that. I know the likes of Dublin, Wexford, Kilkenny, Galway, home advantage and all that, but how are you going to give teams like this a chance if they have to travel to these venues like Nolan Park or Pearse Stadium or Parnell Park or Wexford Park, and knowing you're going to lose before getting on the bus? Like, it's just soul draining for the players, to be honest with you. I suppose Laois and Westmeath players would want to be in the Leinster Championship, definitely. But, like, if you're going to keep getting beatings over this, what was the point of winning the Joe McDonagh Cup in the first place? I'm sorry, I know there's strides being made in Westmeath Laois hurling over the last few years, but the GAA has to do something over these hammerings. Like, it's hard to analyse these games, analyse scores on the Scorpio app or something like that, because these were mismatches. Let's be quite honest with you. And, like, people are saying the Munster Championship is much more better than the Leinster Championship. This is probably one of the reasons why you're going to get 2 games weekly where you know the result before the ball's even thrown in. Like, it's ridiculous at this stage. Maybe Laois put up a big chance to Dublin last week, but that's just 1 in 10 games or something like that happens. So, and it's a very, very hard situation there for Laois and Westmeath. The GAA have to do something. They have to, spread hurling across the island of Ireland. I don't necessarily agree with Donald Cusack most of the time, but he was bang on the Sunday game last night. We need to do better for these counties. The likes of Antrim, the likes of Down in the Joe McDonagh Cup, the likes of Westmeath and Laois, obviously, the likes of Offaly. We need to improve these counties some way, somewhat. Anthony Daly actually suggested that they should have home venues. I'd be totally up for that. We have to do something, basically, Aaron, or else we're just going to keep getting hammerings week in, week out, and ultimately there's going to be nothing to analyse.
Yeah, it's a hard one, all right, because I understand what you mean, like in terms of giving those 2 counties home advantage, but then you could argue, like, with the other 4 counties, like it sort of doesn't, it levels the playing field to a certain degree, but at the same times, I know the likes of Dublin, Kilkenny, Galway, and Wexford, like they'll argue the case. Well, that's how it is, and that's maybe just how it should be. Like, it's a tough one in hurling. Like, they've had this problem really for as long as I've followed the sport, anyways. Like, where it's you have the good teams are just far too good for some of the other teams, who are trying to chase up the likes of your Laois, your Westmeaths, your obviously Offaly in that same bracket, Antrim maybe there as well. Like, it's very hard for them to sort of close that gap, and I don't really know what you do to close that gap with those teams. I mean, you could say, oh, well, maybe the Leinster Championship should just be 4 teams and in a group of 4, but then at the same time, you're taking away Laois and Westmeath's chance to play in the Leinster Championship, and they fully deserve to be in there because they've, Westmeath have come through the Joe McDonagh Cup. Laois have done consistently been in the Leinster Championship now. So it's a hard one, really. Like, I don't really know what the fix is. Maybe they could have a, for the first 6 Leinster Championship be knockouts, and then when it gets to the semi-finals, then a group stage. I'm not sure. It's a it's a very hard one to know what they actually need to do to fix it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a very hard one. Like the Hurling Championship have done this over the last few years. They've tried different scenarios. They've tried the round robin, but when you look at the results that this weekend, like Galway scored 225, I think it was in the first half, or something crazy like that, taking 27 shots out of 33. Brilliant conversion rate. Like, if you keep gonna get these games, what's the point in playing them? Simply, like it's going to do no service to Galway. It's going to do absolutely none to Westmeath. It's going to do none to Laois, and it's going to do none to Kilkenny either. So, I mean, what is the point of these games, to be honest with you? When you look at Munster, for example, like Tipperary and Clare got a hard game this weekend, Limerick and Waterford, Cork will in the next few weeks as well. Whereas in Leinster, you're just going to have meaningless games, a guaranteed 6 or 7 a year. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm just not for this at all. I know Westmeath have worked hard to get in this position. I know Laois have. But if you're going to keep getting hammerings, you have to question what's the point of it all. And the GAA need to do something over this. Like, I question as well, and even as far as I remember as well, that football has been a 32 county championship. And there's surprises along the way, not so much in previous years because of the likes of Dublin and Kerry stepping up to the place. But it has been when I started watching GAA when the likes of Longford were beating Mayo. Like, you didn't expect that at all. It doesn't happen in hurling. I don't know what it is. Maybe these counties need to be developed more. Maybe the likes of Kerry need to be developed. The likes of Down, who do some good work behind the scenes as well. Antrim, Offaly. Like, I mean, there's a lot of good hurling counties out there if the GAA give it the right attention and focus. But at the moment, and over the last few years, I don't think it has. And the GAA need to do something over it, whether it is Anthony Daly's suggestion or Donald Cusack or whatever. They need to do something before it gets out of hand more than it ever has.
Yeah, it's a hard one to know, all right. Like, I mean, you could argue, yeah, those counties do need to be developed more, but then again, how are they going to get that sort of, like, where, how are they going to develop, and like, what level realistically can they get to? Like, are Laois ever going to get up to a level of like, to be fair, Wexford were kind of in the doldrums for a good few years there, sort of pre-Davy Fitz, and he was able to build them up quite well. Dublin have had their stages in the last, 10, 15, 20 years where they've looked quite low and been quite poor, and they've been able to build themselves up. But what you would say is Dublin have the resources there, clearly. They have the facilities, they have the coaches, the training, they have all the clubs, and they've some of Dublin's best hurlers play football. So, they have so much, sort of resources available to them. There has been a lot of work put into Wexford hurling as well. So much so that a lot of Wexford footballers have called out the county board over the work that they've done in hurling. So it's a hard one to know, like, with your Laois, your Westmeaths, like, how do they develop and what can they do realistically? Like, and I don't know, maybe if they need to start looking at restructuring, underage. I've said this before, even in football, like, there should be more of it should be a development league rather than just knockouts. You look at even under 20 football games, what the under 20s get, one game a year, and then they get knocked out, and then that's it. Like, that, it should be a league, really. Of maybe you can have your provincials if you keep your provincials, but then after that it should just be a league of 10 and 10 or whatever it should be. And I think they should do the same in hurling then as well, because then everyone gets to play, players get to develop. If you're an under 20 hurler and you start playing other under 20 hurlers who are, of your Galways, your Kilkennys, and say you're a Westmeath hurler, you'll get used to playing that sort of opposition. So when you make the jump up into the seniors, it won't be as much. So yeah, you wouldn't want to be in the GAA at the minute because a lot to focus on.
Yeah, definitely. And on your point in the under 20s, I definitely agree with you. There needs to be something like that in football. But as for hurling, I think they've introduced that only this year in Munster Championships. Yeah. Like, even Kerry are playing the likes of Tipperary and Waterford over the last few weeks. They might be getting hammered, but over the next few years, that will develop, and Kerry will kind of get better at hurling after that. And it should happen in the Leinster Championship. It should happen in the likes of, well, I don't know, like it's a difficult one. I was thinking about this, putting Galway into the Connacht Championship, but that's not going to help, to be honest with you. Like, an Ulster Championship needs to be developed. Definitely needs to be given more more TV coverage, like Antrim and Down have shown over the last few weeks that they're very good hurling sides. So there's no argument there. Derry, Slot have done well in the club championship, so why can't Derry do well in the inter-county championship? That's maybe an argument there as well. So there are good hurling counties, but at the same time, there's still some big issues that the GAA need to fix. But as you rightly said, I wouldn't like to be part of that GAA board making them kind of big decisions there.
Yeah, and as we were saying, like, it was Galway 337, Westmeath 117. I suppose, speaking of both Galway and Kilkenny, like, in general, I mean, it's hard for them really to take anything away from this, because we just don't really know, like, you know, obviously when they're playing much lower quality opposition, which makes these games sort of hard to discuss and hard to analyse, I suppose. But what you would say is a big sort of confidence booster, I suppose, for Henry Shefflin's men, really, to get that victory after a disappointing way to finish out Wexford. But Galway are a hard one to judge, because we just don't really know. Like, it'd be interesting to see when they play Dublin and Kilkenny, to see sort of, you know, are they one of the big teams in the All-Ireland series? Are they maybe just not quite there? Yeah, it's a hard one to know with them.
It is, definitely. And as you rightly said, with Kilkenny and Galway, they couldn't learn anything about the games this weekend. But Kilkenny, like, they played Laois and Westmeath in the first two games, so they're well set now for they're not really well set. Well, they're well set in the sense that TJ Reid is back up to full fitness after his club campaign with Ballyhale Shamrock. So that's a positive. That's one positive you could take from it, I suppose. But when you look at Galway, they need to get back up on the horse, and in fairness, they did, albeit Westmeath are a very poor team. But at the same time, yeah, very good results there for Galway, even though it was one-sided. It was always going to be one-sided. But it is a weird one with Galway, because they should have had that game wrapped up against Wexford last week. They didn't. And there's a lot of pressure on Galway now to perform in the next few weeks. And I suppose Galway, Kilkenny next week, it's going to be a big game now. It'll show where both sides are at, especially Kilkenny after them two mismatches. So, it should be a very interesting game now next Sunday. And the championship really starts for both of them sides next Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Running on to some of the Joe McDonagh Cup results, then you had Down 316, Antrim 622, and I suppose you could say a derby really between these two, obviously neighbours, and getting to finally play each other for the first time in quite a couple of years as well. Big win in the end for Antrim. I don't think anyone expected it to be as convincing as it was. Down obviously getting that big win over Kerry last weekend, but a big result here for Antrim away to their rivals.
Yeah, a brilliant result for Antrim and for Darren Gleeson in charge there. Some very good performances from Antrim as usual. Keelan Malloy, Neil McManus, very good for Antrim there. But for Down, Paul Sheehan, very good player. Watch out for him in the Joe McDonagh Cup. And there is a possibility that Down could actually get to the Joe McDonagh Cup final despite losing this. Like 316 against Antrim, a former Lee McCarthy team, that's not particularly bad either. So they seem to be doing some good work down in Down really over the last few weeks or so in the league, and going to the championship as well. So you'd expect Antrim to reach the final, but say the last place will be between Down and Offaly. That'll be a tough game to decide that. So a good win for Antrim, but Down not out of it yet. I wouldn't discard them quite yet.
Yeah, and you had Carlow 15 points, Kerry 321. I mean, probably speaks volumes really how much has changed for these two counties. You know, Carlow, a Liam McCarthy team only 2-3 years ago, you know, great hurlers in there like Marty Mouse Kavanagh, for example. But Kerry, the fact that they've gone away to them and beaten them as convincingly as they did, like, I mean, such a comprehensive victory probably shows how far Carlow have fallen and how much Kerry are rising.
Yeah, exactly. After a poor enough result against Down last week, they were pretty poor according to a few Kerry hurling fans last week. So very good performance to get back up the horse this weekend and win that game. And Kerry are not out of the promotion race either. Don't count them out just yet. So brilliant result for Kerry. But as for Carlow, like they were Liam McCarthy a few seasons ago. They have some very good players like Barton Mouse Kavanagh, as you mentioned there, Chris Nolan. Like, it's a hard one with Carlow. They do have the players, but it's a mystery why they can't produce wins out of these players. And they perform well at Sigurdsson Cup. They've very good form in club championship. So why can't they do it in inter-county? That's a big big issue for Carlo there, but very good win for Kerry. Brilliant to win after the disappointing loss against Dow last week. And for Carlo, like, they could be in danger of relegation though, Carlo. This is a difficult situation for them.
Yeah, they might be. The only good thing for them is they did put up a big score against Meath, and you would look at Meath and see it's going to be hard to see where they're going to get their results. So they should be okay maybe in regards to that, but we'll have to see. It was awfully 222 Meath, 19 points. To be fair to me though, from what I heard, this was quite a close game, and for Offaly, one of the sides many people are expecting to get to the Joe McDonagh Cup final. They gave a good display in the end, but I suppose Offaly will be happy enough to collect their first win of 2022.
Yeah, fair play to Offaly. They had a few hard games. They had a few hammerings, so the Division 1 teams, but they got the win in the end. Fair play to Michael Finley's players. They had to work hard, but getting 2 points on the board, that was the main thing for them. But Meath showed a lot of more fight than they did last week against Carlo. That's a positive for them. So maybe they can turn their fortunes around and try beat Carlo. Like, if Carlo go into that possible relegation final in poor form, Meath could catch them on the hop. You never know. Like, so it's a very good result for Offaly. But for Meath, a few positives to take from this game, like a 9-point loss or so. That's not particularly bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely echo what you said there. Well, I suppose before we wrap up, then your own podcast, GAA Statsman, where can people find it out? And obviously your own Instagram as well. Your new Instagram, of course, after your previous Instagram account got hacked. So if you want to give that a shout out as well, so some people can go and follow and check it out.
Yeah, unfortunately my Instagram did get hacked just recently. So just follow the new account, GA__Statsman2, and you'll get your stats there for the foreseeable future. Don't worry, I'm trying to get my account back as we speak, trying to email Instagram constantly. Hopefully I'll get it back, but for now, just follow that account. My podcast is all over Google, really. If you search a GAA Statsman podcast, you'll find it. And Twitter as well, pretty active there too now recently, GA_Statsman. Follow that and you'll get your weekly stats.
Perfect. Cheers, Matthew, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Thanks for letting me on again.